already smashed that one then.
What is up, freaks? Happy Bitcoin. What day is it, CK? Happy Bitcoin Wednesday. It's been a long week, long month, long year. It's your host, Odell, here for another Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actionable freedom tech and Bitcoin discussion. As always, Dispatch is ad-free, sponsor-free, and purely supported by donations, Bitcoin donations by our wonderful audience. So thank you to all the freaks who continue to support Dispatch and make it possible. The easiest way to support Dispatch is by going to citadeldispatch.com/donate. That will bring you to our geyser.fund page where you can donate via on-chain Bitcoin or Lightning. You can donate anonymously, or you can attach your Twitter handle to it, climb the leaderboard, put a message on the leaderboard, and shout out the show while you're doing that. I love to see the donations come in. Thank you all for supporting. You can also support Dispatch through podcasting 2.0 apps such as Fountain Podcasts, Breeze Wallet, Podverse.fm. They work like regular podcast apps. You search Citadel Dispatch, you press that subscribe button, you load up your podcast app with Bitcoin, and then you choose how much sats per minute you think the show is worth. Those sats flow directly to my node. Incredibly powerful experience seeing those sats come in. So thank you to the freaks who support that way. And then last but not least, you can support through something called boostergrams on podcasting 2.0 apps, where you're able to put a statement, a question, any kind of message attached to a set amount of sats. I read the top 4 boostergrams from the previous episode. The previous episode was yesterday with Phoenix Ammunition. So these are the true ride or dies that listened and got their boostergrams in within a 24-hour period. We have at Eric99 with 50,000 sats saying, stay humble, stack sats. Great advice. Thank you, Eric. He also then said, looks like the sats going to the dispatch node didn't send. There was an error. I thank you for telling me there was an error. I did check. It seems like it's working. It's still really early on Lightning. Maybe I didn't get those sats. Maybe I did. Who knows? But either way, I appreciate your support. We have at Lone Star with 10,000 sats saying awesome real world use case. Then we have at Wartime Psycho with 5,000 sats saying awesome rip. And we have at Blockchain Boog with 2,000 sats saying thumbs up. And then a quick shout out to me with 100 sats saying test. And that was me testing to see if the Lightning sats went to my node. And they did. So anyway, we have a great show lined up. Also, before I forget, if you're tuning in for the first time, Citadel Dispatch is streamed on every platform, Bitcoin TV, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. You just search Citadel Dispatch. That's how you can join the live shows. That's how you can join the live chat. We also have the Matrix chat that runs 24/7, 365. All the relative links, all the relevant links are at citadeldispatch.com. We're also in every podcast app. You just search Citadel Dispatch. I know it's a recession. I know it's a bear market. If you can't contribute sats, if you can't part with your precious sats, subscribing, leaving a review, sharing with friends and family, joining the live chat really does help. With all that said, we have our friend CK joining for a second time. I know you guys all loved our previous rip. When was our previous rip, CK?
I don't know, like 3 months ago, 2 months ago.
There you go. And since then, we've had Bitcoin 2023 in Miami. CK is one of the leads at Bitcoin Magazine, who runs the Bitcoin Magazine runs the conference, this massive party that has happened in Miami for the last 3 years.
Now coming to Nashville.
Right now we're in Nashville.
We are.
We're at Bitcoin Park at the studio. So thank you. The in-person rips are always better. So thank you for that. The camera's over there.
Yep.
But I'm over here. So I don't know. We're working on it. We're working on our camera angles over here at Dispatch.
I wasn't expecting me on camera. Otherwise, I would have worn more Bitcoin Magazine swag.
There you go. Well, we got the wonderful magazine on the counter.
Yeah. Now y'all know what I wear when I just work.
Yeah. CK's been working from the park today. But the idea of this show was actually CK approached me with the idea of the show. We had is it public how many people came to the event?
I mean, like the word on the street is like 15,000.
So. Okay, so we had like 15,000 people in Miami. They came down for Bitcoin 2023. There was a bunch of feedback, criticism, love, all sorts of in between after the event of that size. That makes sense. And CK wanted to address everything and have just like a proper debrief of the conference. And he thought Dispatch was a great venue for that because we have this wonderful interactive live chat where you guys can participate and put any questions or comments or whatever you want answered, or whatever you want to yell, you can just put right in the comments, and we can address.
Let's do it.
How does
Yeah.
that sound? Is that a good?
Sounds good. I thought it was an amazing event. Every single year we learn something new, but our goal is to bring Bitcoiners together. We define Bitcoiners and Bitcoin company as people who are using Bitcoin, interested in Bitcoin. And we do a lot of work to reach as many people as possible, and try to have something for everyone. We don't always 100% succeed at that, but I think we have a pretty good thing going here, and we gotten a tremendous amount of encouragement, gotten some good feedback, and I got constructive feedback. Got a lot of yelling too, so kind of got a whole bunch of different stuff. So ultimately, when it comes to what Bitcoin Magazine does, we're a culture company. We've leaned on plebs a lot to get us to where we are. And I want to have a conversation with the plebs about the event. Want to talk about what we're doing in Amsterdam and Nashville. And, ultimately, if there's time, get bullish. We got 2 hours set here, but we'll see. We'll see how much time we have for, talking about some other stuff.
Awesome. So, I mean, it seems like people are coming in right now and they're joining us, and we don't have any. Don't be shy, freaks. Feel free to put any questions or comments you have in the live chat.
I didn't realize the freaks were shy.
Yeah, sometimes they're shy. Middle of the day, Wednesday, long week. But I mean, where do you want to start? And then if I'll watch the live chat for us, and if anything interesting comes up.
So one of the criticisms that I think people give the conference, it feels weird to start with criticisms because there's just so much like positivity.
Do you want to start with the positivity?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm happy to talk, anything.
Let's start with the
Yeah.
positivity.
I mean, like Matt, you've been here since 2019. You've kind of seen how the sausage is made since 2021. I thought this year was awesome. It was really, really well executed. In terms of like in 2021, we had a big line problem. And that kind of was like a black eye for
a big line problem.
Yeah, it was painful. And
well, just so
in terms of like we are able to put together like this exceptional product that can easily serve the scale of people that we're able to bring to the event, and it took a lot of iterations to get there. And being on the inside, actually putting it on, like, one, that's huge, and that's so important too. Like, the mission that we're trying to do is, one, like, create a productive environment for people to do Bitcoin, as Ron DeSantis says, and move this mission forward. You can't have that with bad, with long lines. You can't have that with bad security. You can't have that without having like a good experience for VIPs, and you can't have that without having a good experience for Bitcoiners and Bitcoin businesses and entrepreneurs. So all that stuff is just like, for me, I thought we killed it on that front, for sure, and made a good experience for Bitcoiners.
Yeah, I mean, so to pull it back, just for some context on what CK said, in 2019, Bitcoin Magazine, but pre-2019, Bitcoin Magazine kind of lost its way. There was a lot of
I don't think that that's even fair characterization.
Okay.
Pre 2019, like the idea of like Bitcoin only and Bitcoin maximalism was like fledgling.
You can have whatever framing you want, but
sure.
Pre 2019, it wasn't a Bitcoin first company. You were running Ethereum conferences. You were covering all this other stuff.
The first event I ever worked was Distributed 2018, which is very much
Ethereum
it was a multi-coin company. The hottest stage was the DeFi stage.
Right. And then as a external Bitcoiner, I watched as the company started getting back to basics and started focusing on Bitcoin much more and making it a clear focus of the company. And in 2019, you launched a flagship conference, Bitcoin 2019, in San Francisco. I think there was like 2,500 people there. I participated on stage, and we had a rabbit hole recap to end it all off. And I told everyone to buy the top at 13K, because that was actually, despite common belief, Bitcoin doesn't always dump during the Bitcoin conference. Bitcoin 2019, it pumped like a motherfucker. Like every time a panel ended, the price would go up on the screen and it'd be like another $800 up. It was like
It was euphoria. It
the
was
event
insane.
started, and 800 was a big deal at that time. But anyway, so 2019, I was a major participant in it. I got to know your team really well. 2020, you guys were going to go even bigger. Then the lockdowns happened like 3 weeks before the conference, which is absolutely devastating. You guys cut down on your team significantly. And then fall 2020, I came in, you asked me as a friend, we were already pretty close friends at that point. You asked me as a friend, you're like, Matt, I would love your help at Bitcoin Magazine. I came in as a consultant, like 10 people in the company, something like that. We sprinted and ran the 2021 conference in Miami. Yep. And that was like 13,000 people. And that's where Line Gate happened. And there was all different sorts of execution situations. But I mean, it was 13,000 people.
Going from 2,000 to 13,000 is just
during COVID. And no one loves excuses, but 13,000 people during COVID. No masks, no vax policy. Everyone thought that we were crazy running a 13,000 person event. And there were some hiccups along the way.
I mean, it was a huge success too, but you always learn.
And the team blossomed from like that 5-month period. It went from like 10 people to like 40 people, 50 people. And then by the 2022 event, the org was at like 100 people. And then the 2022 event was over 20,000 people. It was like 24,000 people or something like that.
It was insane. Yeah.
And then Amsterdam happened.
Mm-hmm.
Amsterdam was a great party and just a great event. Mm-hmm. Great partners in Amsterdam. And then we had 2023. We come into 2023, first like bear market event.
Yeah.
And the
first bear market, like big Bitcoin conference.
Vibes were still very high. 15,000 people. Amazing execution in terms of like ops side. Like the lines were great. The lines were non-existent. Registration was easy. Security was easy. The event was like, the floor plan of the event was nice and condensed. It was the second time in that conference center. Like I felt like everything was more accessible, and it felt like they were in the right place. Like things were in the right place.
It made sense. We learned the conference hall. Like we don't get that many iterations, so it's kind of hard to like be like, oh yeah, having the deep all the way in the back was a bad idea.
I mean, it was people were like measuring their steps in 2022. It was fucking insane. You had to like run a marathon every day. So that part, I mean, that was amazing. And people, I want to hone in on this, and this is why I wanted to go through that full timeline.
Yeah,
is because people don't realize, first of all, how small the team is. Because even though the org is like 100, like the actual conference specific, even though everyone ends up helping on the conference, is like 40, 50 people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a little bit smaller. So we have about 80 people full time, and then the conference team's like 35 people.
Right. So like, I mean, I don't do math live on Air Freaks, you know this, but like just divide like 15,000 divided by 35, and that's insane.
Yeah.
In terms of heads organizing versus attendees, and just there's just so many moving parts. Like people don't understand. You said it, how the sausage is made. Like it is just fucking insane, and the team fucking crushed it.
At throwing an event, 100%. At throwing the Bitcoin conference, I think 100%.
Yeah.
I think like the Bitcoin industry and the Bitcoin ecosystem. One, it has such an incredible ecosystem of organizers already, and it has like one of the best industry events of all industries right now. Like if you kind of compare the Bitcoin conference to Money 2020 or Web Summit, a lot of these other events, like in a very short amount of time, like Bitcoin has that too, and I think that's a great element of like what is attracting people to Bitcoin and showing people what like Bitcoin has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I align pretty hard with Bailey on this, in that if you've ever been to, like a quote unquote like work conference or something, it's not really a comparison to the Bitcoin conference. The Bitcoin conference is more of a comparison to like a music festival or something like that. It does. I mean, I've never been to Money 2020, but I've been to other industry specific conference events, right? And
Yeah.
it's mostly just a glorified like expo hall or just like a bunch of booths trying to get your email address. So it's definitely, it takes the vibe a whole different level, and the team just does a really good job capturing that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like frankly, like in 2019 when we went from a crypto company to we like, hey, we're embracing Bitcoin only, like this is the path forward. Like we were pretty much the first company to do that. I think it was us and Unchained, where Unchained
You
they
might be
dropped.
the only company that's ever transitioned.
I mean, Unchained used to have ETH.
At
They cut
launch,
that.
they kind of
Yeah,
did, but they never, I don't even think they offered it as a product.
sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I don't know, but
but
regardless,
and like
like
a bunch of Bitcoin only companies bloomed after that and like in that era, but I don't know of any that really. I mean, how long has Bitcoin Magazine existed?
so 2012 is when the first magazine was printed.
Yeah,
So
so like early
2012 through
Bitcoin,
2014 is like the first 22
like
issues.
shitcoins barely even existed.
Hmm.
Then like all the craziness, ICO mania, ETH launches, ICO mania, all the bullshit, and then back to Bitcoin. I don't know of any other like Coinbase has never done that. Kraken has never done
Yeah.
that. Like there are very few companies, and I kind of remember this vividly because on the podcast, if you go back, one of the things I love about Rabbit Hole Recap is like a time capsule. And when Bitcoin Magazine announced they were doing this, I was like, "This is it, guys! Like, all these companies, they're all gonna, they're all gonna pivot." Like, that was a completely wrong call. It just didn't
That's
happen.
just us.
But I was like, it's not even ideological. It's like good for business. Like,
It
it
was good for
changes.
business
Yeah.
though. Like
Well, for Bitcoin
definitely.
Magazine, 100% was, but that theory didn't play out really. I didn't really see many
I think
companies
we're
do
just
it.
still early. I think the pivot is not going to be necessarily crypto business pivoting to Bitcoin, although Bitcoin Magazine's trying to help make that happen and,
Yeah.
and start that conversation. But I think it's just going to be like energy companies and finance companies.
Well, on a long enough time
Like
scale,
that's
every company is a Bitcoin company.
yeah,
Right?
100%. Like we're going to see, we're going to see 1,000 micro strategies, before this is all done. But
Like I tell people that on the 1031 side, they're like, how can you have a venture fund that's just focused on Bitcoin? I mean, Nick Carter's famously said like you can't deploy uh, significant money into Bitcoin
yeah,
only
it's so dumb.
strategy. And it's like literally the world is our oyster. Every company is a Bitcoin company. It's just how long are you willing to wait for that to play out?
Yeah, I mean, even the shitcoin companies are Bitcoin companies
Yeah.
now, as of like 3 months ago. So, yeah,
Well, the bear
I
markets
completely
tend to do
agree.
that. The real question is who stays a Bitcoin company in the coming bull
Yeah,
market.
no,
You
hundred
see that with
percent.
influencers and businesses, right? Everyone
Hmm.
gets wrecked in the bear and they pretend they're Bitcoiners and then
Yeah, I mean,
they go back to shitcoins.
I don't even know how we got into this, but yeah, I mean,
So what else was positive about the event? I thought I remember when the news desk was just a crazy little idea
hmm
in the head. It was like, okay, college game day, but
yeah,
during the Bitcoin conference.
hmm
I think the execution of the news desk was the best execution that we've seen
I love
in
the
all
news
the
desk.
events. Like the iteration has kind of happened over time, and it was very professional.
Yeah, I mean, the news desk is awesome. It's one of my favorite things, and I think what people a lot of people have criticism of like what necessarily happens on stage. And obviously, like we want to have entertaining moments on stage. There's a lot of moments on stage that we can manufacture. There's a lot of moments on stage that we can't manufacture, right? Like people are like, oh wow, that Robert Kennedy thing was incredible. When he stepped on stage in that moment, like we had no idea if that was going to be a huge massive flop or if he was going to like nail it. Like we
Well,
had no
I
idea.
want to talk to whoever wrote his policy
but
because
uh but what I'm saying
he's
is
talking
like
to the right people, whoever he's talking
the
to.
the best thing about the news desk is that whatever happens on stage, like Bitcoin Magazine from an editorial perspective can like kind of lead a conversation about after it,
Well, one of
commentate
the
about
things
it.
I
And
think
I
is
and
kind
I
of
just like
cool.
I love that element is,
Well, the news desk is treated almost like another stage,
yeah,
and that's
it's
how
the
it should
digital
be.
main stage. It's the virtual main stage.
But that's also something that I think a lot of us miss if you go to the event, right? Because um, I think it's very commonly understood by people who have been to events um, that the best part of every event is just meeting people and having beers with Bitcoiners
Mhm.
and shaking hands and giving hugs and just all these internet friends and like people you know through the internet, just like actually meeting them in meet space and having physical connections is, to me, has always been the most valuable part. But then if you're not at the event, your sole focus on that event is what is being sent through that stream,
Mm-hmm.
which is main stage, the Nakamoto stage, plus the news desk.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a complete, if you're not there, you have a completely different perspective than some, because first of all, if you're at the event, you have no idea what's going on the news desk. Even if you're standing in front of the news desk, like the mics aren't set to
They do
like tell
broadcast
people.
out, but it's like that's not necessarily the experience. Like
Yeah.
people will kind of like if there's some big person on the news desk, like kind of hover around and watch. But the news desk, they go live for 5 minutes and then they go quiet and kill time for 25 minutes. So like it's
Yeah.
not a good viewing experience necessarily. It's cool if you're there, but it's not something where you're just gonna camp out and like watch people
Right.
talk on the news desk.
Yeah. And also just on the news desk, I just love how it's like in the center. It's a real college game day experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, the
Uh,
execution is awesome. Like there's definitely elements of the virtual execution that we've like gotten to learn every single year, and we learned a lot this year. I'll tell you that, especially at GA day one. But in terms of incorporating the news desk element, it absolutely huge. You know, I did the Bitcoin 21 stream on my laptop. Like I set that up every day before the conference started, and like it pretty much was just a one straight shot of the main stage, and then during intermissions and during lunch, it just like was a hold screen.
yeah.
You know, so like
Just like
now,
the logo bouncing around or
yeah, so the fact that there's color commentary, if someone says something smart or dumb, like we can talk about it. Um, and it has like an all day entertainment flow. It's fantastic, and it shows you the expo hall, which is like one of the best parts about the event. Is this is, in my opinion, the only event in the entire industry that actually has an expo hall, and like that's super important for a lot of like the different vendors and a lot of the different creators that are just like trying to show their work to people and meet people and shake hands and build trust. So I think that that's like a pretty big element that we do, and it brings a lot of life to the event. And I love the news desk is like right there on the expo
Well, I
floor.
would say, well, first of all, a huge shout out to Chris Salemo, Ride or Die Freak, who should get a lot of the credit for the news desk execution this year. He fucking crushed it.
He did like 4 different jobs to make it happen this
Yeah.
year. Last year, I think we had 3 different people doing what he did by himself.
I love that dude. He's a great dude. And then second of all, last year the volcano was behind the news desk, center of the expo hall.
Yep.
This year the block clock. No, I guess we can't call it block clock because
The block tower.
NVK trademarked that term. The block tower, the big tower with mempool on the top, mempool.space on the top, was fucking badass.
Yeah, that's
And
that one was a win.
this might be a controversial topic, but I think I like the clock tower better than the volcano. And I think there's probably a 50-50. I feel like people probably feel strongly about one way or the other on that.
I think the clock tower should be here to stay. Like the clock tower was so sick and dynamic, and when Marathon announced that they were matching fundraising to Brink 2-to-1 during the event, and then 1-to-1 after, until they got to $500,000 raise, so total of $1 million total to Brink. The clock tower behind it switched to show the QR code and promote the fundraise.
Yeah,
and they
the dynamic displays on it were
it was on point.
Very nice.
Same when we launched the Bitcoin 24 Nashville tickets, it changed. So like I think we got to keep that one.
Yeah.
And like the mempool team did an awesome job. Like they built those custom mempool graphics.
Yeah.
So that's all the mempool team. They did an amazing job. It was sick. I mean, someone was telling me that I need to get that mempool interface on my Apple Watch. I don't know how to make that happen.
I think they're going to release widgets with
Okay.
that interface.
I mean,
that's their plan. I'm announcing it live on air.
Oh, so
Wiz, if
we totally blew it. Yeah.
if you're listening, now you have to do it. You have no choice.
Yeah. Sorry, Wiz. We set you up.
But yeah, I was actually on the news desk while Wiz was announcing his mempool accelerate on the open source stage, and the screens behind us on the tower dynamically switched as the announcement was being made. It's really fucking awesome,
dude. Yeah. So another like behind the scenes freak who made all the stuff on the clock tower happen was Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro's amazing,
dude. Man, that guy is an absolute legend. I think he works on like 3 different projects, including responding to every graphics request for the conference on our end. Like night and day, like literally night and day, because he doesn't live in the US time zone. So like we'll be messaging him late in Nashville, and like this dude's responding. It's like, I know how late it is where you live, bro. And I see that, dude. That guy is amazing.
Pedro's awesome. He is definitely a ride or die. So we do have a question in the comments.
Let's go. Finally.
There's a bunch now.
Okay. Good.
People are coming in.
I want to hear the questions. I want to talk about it.
Okay. Question was, why was the main stage hidden upstairs in the corner?
Oh, that's a good question. So ultimately, like the Miami Beach Convention Center has its limitations. I personally thought that the way that the floor plan was set up in the open source stage could have been better. And I think that there's a lot of learnings and improvements to the presentation of where that is. But I think at this point, the team, every member of the team, including the production team, like understands like how important the execution of that space is.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll jump in here because one of my responsibilities at the org is making sure the open source stage is fucking badass. I was very happy.
Succeeded.
Yeah, I was very happy with the whole idea. The idea was, first of all, I mean, you have a venue, right? You have a venue, you have what you can work with.
Yeah.
It's also a bear market, so you have certain budgetary constraints. And this idea that the open source stage had its own, well, first of all, let's go back to timelines. Open source stage was dreamed up in late 2020, early 2021. And we had this great idea that we were going to put this air-conditioned dome outside during the 2021 event.
Work out. It did work out, but the dome didn't work.
First of all, the dome was smaller than we expected. The AC was way worse than we expected. It was way hotter outside than we expected. The dome had this clear panel on it, so it was like a greenhouse. We had a greenhouse effect happening, so it was super hot in there.
Yep.
But props where props are due. The org agreed that we couldn't have, some like shitcoin KYC sponsor on the dome. That dome ended up not having any sponsor. The org completely covered all the costs on that. And then, but it was great vibes. The vibes are great. The vibes are sweaty, but the vibes are great.
Yep.
So the next year we did it bigger, and we had our own proper conference hall in the venue. It was where the mining stage was this year. Now we had our own issues. First of all, we were very grateful that Cash App came in and sponsored it. It was, there was the whole angle like, oh, Spiral, Cash App, but it ended up Cash App sponsored it. We were very grateful that Cash App came in and sponsored it. And the org really pulled through. We had a really great open source stage. But one of the main complaints we had was at the end of the day, we talked about this earlier, like what do people want to do? They want to meet each other in person,
hang out.
And they want to hang out. And more on the open source side, what do people want? They want to like hack and do other things. So they want tables and all this stuff. And we had some tables in the back, but noise was becoming an issue. So then we brought the tables outside, but like the venue didn't like that. We had never agreed to that. We kind of just winged it on the venue.
These are details I don't even know, Matt.
So there was
that you're coming in with some.
There was like questionable fire code violations and stuff, but the venue just
fire marshals are strict.
The venue went along with it, right? So enter this year, bear market, budgetary constraints, right? We found this upstairs portion where it used to be the enterprise stage, I think, was up there in that area.
And that was not a good location for the enterprise.
And it was. We were able to put workshop tables outside. We had a private conference hall, and then we had bar and bathrooms and a patio where you can smoke if you wanted some fresh air, if you wanted some not fresh air and smoke cigarettes. Like it was a night. To me, it was the ideal vibe.
Yep.
And this idea that the open source stage is essentially a conference within a conference, right? And you could, if you wanted to, and I'm not saying you should necessarily, but if you wanted to, you could just wake up in the morning, go there, go upstairs, and you could just, that could be your conference. Like you don't have to go anywhere else. Totally. And you just have everything you need.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And of course, I wish Matt, thank you very much. You did a much better job. But no, of course, I want to make that element bigger, right? And like for every element that was there, I pushed as hard as possible to make it as favorable as possible. One of the big things that Matt and I both secured is maximum amount of dev tickets. So
Yes.
tickets to grants. Pretty much there's unlimited. The org would have given unlimited.
We didn't have that
We didn't
program
get
in 21. I think we started in
yeah,
22.
yeah,
We expanded it in 23.
yeah. To like in terms of the
We had
project.
over 150
Yeah,
tickets to free. So many
more tickets.
developers
Yeah.
walked up to me and they shook my hand. They thanked me, like so happy that they were able to get free 3-day passes to the event.
Totally, totally. So, and again, like businesses and hires are made at this event too. So, we pushed really hard, and I want to make it bigger. And like, I think here, this is what's important: is like we only get one iteration at a time,
Yeah.
on this event. So like every single time, we actually do take a lot of your feedback, and we literally incorporate it like very strongly. For example, like if we didn't educate people about this as well as I wanted us to, but if you were to flip your wristband upside down, it was OPSEC friendly. And this is like something that Matt has been pounding the table for like 4 years on. He's like, I don't want to walk around a city with a
Like
thing that says
literally a
Bitcoin
target.
and
Yeah.
whale on it. It's like, so we took those details, and we take all of these different requests and points and mistakes into account every single time, and I think we have a pretty much proven track record of improvements in terms of like the overall event, and making improvements and doing things awesome. And yes, hey, the open source stage is the main stage for hardcore Bitcoiners, and that's why we make it, put a lot of effort into having Matt as an advisor, like making sure that we have awesome open source stage content, and making sure that stage exists. And, in terms of like what's in for the open source stage next year, it's going to be better. Like it's going to be a lot better. And I think it's going to be a lot bigger. I think one of the things that was achieved this year is for the people on the team that weren't convinced that the open source stage was a big deal for a lot of our audience, they are now firmly convinced on that. So I think that the open source stage is really going to be incredible next year in terms of like how well we produce the actual stage. The content has been hitting, pretty much since the get go, since it was a sweaty nerd tent.
2 things.
Mhm.
You said sweaty nerd 10. I've only used that term internally, but you just said it publicly. 2 things. First of all, there was about 10 people that either came up to me or it was obvious through their GitHub activity that they started becoming open source contributors because of the program last year, and they wanted free tickets this year.
Badass.
Exactly the kind of incentive you want to see.
Mhm.
Second of all, to me, a big fail consistently has been lack of live stream out of the open source stage.
Mhm.
Hopefully we see a change.
Well, it's not
this
because
year.
we don't want it, like we don't. Here's something that people don't understand. Like, there's the pirate stream, which is not ideal,
Yeah.
but we don't stop the pirate
Thanks,
stream.
Wiz.
Like we
Yeah.
could, like, thank you, Wiz. Like we could easily stop the pirate stream if
How
we
could
like
you?
we
It's
wanted to, like.
unstoppable, dude. You can't censor the pirate
But I'm
stream.
saying is like,
There's no camera just sitting on a tripod in the corner
yeah. So like,
with a mobile hotspot attached to it.
yes. So, we try to do the pirate stream, and we try to like, our commitment when there isn't a live stream is that we prioritize that
The videos are
content.
prioritized. It was like
Like
open source stage was like 14th, 15th video on YouTube after the fact. Like the YouTube team strongly prioritized the open source stage. I will
And
say
like, let's
that.
just take a quick pause. Andrea and Tino. Andrea, first of all, it was her birthday, like in and around the conference. So like, she and him were working pretty much from waking up till very late dinner time every single day, like editing and putting this stuff out. And like,
Huge
people
shout
don't
out.
even know, like, when you see a live stream and it has all the production, all this kind of stuff, and then when you watch something on stage that might not be live streamed, they don't always capture the content the right way.
Yeah.
So like, there was a lot of occasions where like the deck wasn't aligned with the actual presentation, and then these freaking angels, like, to put it the least, incredible editors, they painstakingly flip through the deck as the people were giving the presentation while they're editing the video and then posting it, and they're doing it like, all day every day through their birthdays, through the exhaustion of traveling, through all this stuff. So,
Yeah, that's
even Memorial Day was on Monday. The video team didn't take Monday off. They just kept working through it.
yeah,
So
people
it's
don't
just like, it's
realize
epic. Like, cheers to them.
people don't
Seriously.
realize within the org, people get married, people have kids, people have birthdays, people have, health issues, right? And the way the world works is they usually happen right around the conference. Like, there's no way you can never avoid that.
Yeah, I got married.
There you go.
Around
I remember that.
Doxing a lot of information here.
Well, yeah, we didn't say anyway. But yeah, people don't realize that, but the team comes through and tries to make it the best possible.
So, in terms of like getting the live stream on the open source stage, I think every event is an iteration. So I think the open source stage will be bigger, better, badder than ever before next year in Nashville.
I'm very excited about it moving
So
to
I
Nashville,
think it's going to be hyped.
I've been rooting for Nashville since before I moved to Nashville and before I joined the org.
Well, we can definitely talk about Miami to Nashville. But if you are a part of an organization that is really really passionate about open source and the content that's on the open source stage, and you want to help us make that content available immediately, like we're down to talk. So we're here for help. We're always here to do the best that we can. We don't always do the best, but we're doing our best every year. We're trying to get better, and in terms of the open source stage, like that is a core part of what we do. We know like that is so important to this audience. And, we put a lot of resources into actually making it happen. And that's huge.
No, yeah, a lot of respect. The org does get seeing how the sausage is made. I'm very grateful, and there's a lot of respect there in terms of how much effort and weight is put behind the open source stage, both from a budget, time, everything perspective. And I think the vibes were electric there. It was amazing. It was amazing this year. It was a massive success.
Let's do more for it. Honestly, I agree with all of y'all. Let's do the open source stage better every single year.
And the contributor program, like we should be doing way better than like me and CK were really disappointed that we only gave away a little over 150 tickets.
I wanted 200 the whole time. We got close.
And I was super bullish. CK was like, are we going to get over 200? I was like, hell yeah, we're going to get over 200. We're going to shatter 200. But we got over 150. So, but I would like to see that number go up.
We got to do it again for Amsterdam. I think we still need to tee up the details there, but we're doing it.
It wasn't.
Oh, sorry, we haven't done it for Amsterdam in the past, but I think we should just bring the open source ticket program to all of the events.
It's such a good program. It's like 50 different projects are part of it now, and if you have suggestions on projects to add, also,
I mean, they're popping up all the time.
Some of the rules were bent a little bit, even if there was some projects that weren't necessarily listed on the website that we included in the program this year, and we'll expand that. A bunch of Nostr projects were included, which I was really excited about. There was a massive Nostr presence at the event, which I think is a big win. Is a cool expansion of Bitcoin culture,
and frankly, it could be bigger. So we're doing
maybe
our best
Nostr's stage would be pretty cool.
Nostr.
Are we announcing the Nostr stage, CK?
Not on this call.
This is why CK doesn't like doing live shows, because I just announce things that don't exist yet.
That's absolutely not true. I love doing live shows. In fact, I hate doing not live shows because it's just more work.
It's true. There's no editing. I just press live and we're on air. Someone's asking in the comments, is it public where it's happening in Nashville?
Yeah, Miami Beach Convention Center. Sorry, God, I just said Miami Beach Convention Center. That's so dumb. No, it was. I just got so used to saying that. No, it is at the Music City Center.
Yeah, so the major convention center here in Nashville.
Yeah,
right off Broadway.
Yeah, right off Broadway, across the street from the Bridgestone Arena. And the cool thing about Nashville
is fucking awesome, by the way.
Yeah, the cool thing about Nashville is, like, one, you don't need Broadway. Like, you can avoid Broadway. Like, Matt and I, how often do you go to Broadway?
Only when, like, people visit.
Yeah, when you're entertaining people. But it's a pretty freaking cool place to entertain people.
It is one of the best tourist districts in the world.
Yeah, it is. So, one, Broadway is awesome. You can ignore it 100%. You don't need Broadway. And then, unlike New York, unlike other places, like, Bitcoiners can 100% take over Nashville.
Yeah.
Like Nashville, I mean, the color of Tennessee is already
CK, I hate
Bitcoin
to
orange.
break it to you, we're already taking over Nashville.
But I'm talking about like completely the Bitcoin horde has run down all of Nashville. It is orange
Especially the
everywhere.
bull market turns.
And then every business. I can't begin to express to you, like Rod has already started setting me up with local business people, like the grassroots that are deep into Nashville already, that are on Team Bitcoin and have just been absolutely coming out of the woodwork in support of Bitcoiners coming here and this event. It's unbelievable. So I'm very hyped. I mean, I live here. I don't live in Miami. So I'm just excited for what we can actually do here in Nashville, and it's going to be sick.
Yeah, I also live in Nashville.
Doxed.
I think, well, on Twitter it says I live in Austin, so a lot of people just think that. But yeah, we're at Bitcoin Park in Nashville, a community space dedicated to Bitcoin and community development. I think Nashville is, one of the best cities in the world to live in as a Bitcoiner. Period. Full stop. I would not say that about Miami.
I'm enjoying it.
And I'm very excited. I'm very excited for the conference to be here. I'm very excited. One of the things also people don't realize if they don't come to these massive Bitcoin festivals is that it's a week full of other events and everything that goes on. So I'm very bullish on Bitcoin in Nashville. I think that Nashville is quickly becoming one of the Bitcoin capitals of the world regardless. And this conference, this week-long crazy festival, will supercharge that and just speed up the timeline.
100%. And I can tell you from the conversations I'm having that it's getting serious. Like I'm ready for the next, like I'm ready for Tennessee to be known as like the next Texas in the Bitcoin race.
Yeah.
Like I think Nashville is already on par with Austin, but I'm ready for Tennessee to be on par with what Texas is doing. And I think, it's all about credit is where credit is due. Thank you, Florida. Like sincerely, like we've been in Miami for the last 3 years as the Bitcoin conference. Thank you so much to Miami, because I remember, Matt, you were in that room with me when I had to stand up and be like, we can't do the Bitcoin conference in California.
Right. It was supposed to be in LA.
Yeah. Like I lived in California at the time. And I was like, and it was not a done deal in 2021. It was not a done deal to move the event to Miami. The only reason we moved it to Miami is because Miami was the only place in the freaking country that was like a real city that was open.
It was turnkey.
And and like it was like the whole thing was open. Like you're saying it's turnkey. It's like the whole thing was open. Like Nashville was open, but it wasn't like all the way open. Like the concerts and the festivals and the clubs were not like on the same level yet.
I have to check the receipts.
Yeah.
I have to check the receipts.
Like Nashville's popping.
I'm pretty sure that my vote was Nashville. I hadn't moved to Nashville yet. I'm pretty sure my vote was Nashville at the time.
People wanted Nashville.
But I will tell you for sure, I don't need to check receipts for this. I was very early on the bail on LA train.
Yep.
Like in 2020, I was like, you guys are fucking crazy. Like you cannot have this in LA.
Oh yeah, because it was 2020 got canceled in SF, and then we can't. And then when it got canceled, we moved it to LA.
Yeah.
We had to deposit on a place, and that was like a big reason.
I was like, they're gonna rug pull us. We're gonna get rug pulled.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's very clear that no event was happening in California in 2021, especially not
very obvious
in hindsight. Yeah, but again, like Miami made it possible. The Bitcoin conference in Miami, especially 2021, was like a bleeding edge event that was on the cutting edge of freedom. Like literally, like the front lines of freedom. Like that was Bitcoin 2021. And
like all the haters came out too. All the haters, like mainstream media or whatever, saying like we're killing people. Like
oh my god, the Rolling Stones article afterward was hilarious. So like that was like the PR crisis of I think we've upgraded. Our PR crisis is now we had a presidential speech that was too awesome, and then people didn't like the content afterwards. Before, like in 2021, the PR crisis was that we were literally killing people.
I mean, I had family that was just like, not only are you going down to Miami for a 13,000 person event, you helped run it. Like they were distraught.
Yeah, thankfully my family was never that distraught, but I don't think that they fully grokked what I was doing. So maybe it was just ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I mean, besides the lines.
I mean, were we not on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge
2021
of
was
freedom, like, in that moment?
2021
Like,
was a
that took
special event.
like, I just wanna say
2020 BitBlock boom and 2021
yeah.
Bitcoin 2021 they were both like just you'll never repeat them because you had to have that macro climate
Mhm.
of just panic and
S
fear.
so 2020 BitBlock boom, I was supposed to go. I had a ticket. I gave it to Nick Can't Mine, which
Yeah.
was probably one of the best decisions of my career
Wow.
because
It
one,
was
I
great for me. I chilled with Nick.
I wish I coulda gone, but that weekend, truthfully, was the same weekend I was moving, and my wife would have murdered me. I was like I even tried to be like, "Look, I'll do all the moving a week
You're
before."
moving internally in
Like, I was
California.
moving, yeah, from my apartment to my parent-in-law's house. I was moving to my in-laws. This is, summer of 2020, so I was, like, getting out of my lease,
Right.
consolidating, like, this is a very rational thing to do at the time. It was the same weekend, and my wife was like, "You're not allowed to leave. Like, you have to be moving on this weekend." So I gave the ticket to Nick. Nick convinced Dylan LeClaire that he needs to work for us. This is Dylan LeClaire under 5,000 followers. And Nick and Joe Rogers were like, bro, we need to hire Dylan LeClaire. And then I wasn't going to fight them. So then I was like,
Young
Dylan, what are you
legend.
good at? He was like, I don't know. I like Bitcoin. And I was like, all right, we'll figure out how to hire you. So because I didn't go to Big Block Boom 2020, we got Dylan LeClaire. Bless up to that.
Yeah, and I got to
Um,
spend a lot of time with Nick. It was that also weekend was the first time I ever met P.
mhm. P
It
was
was
at that one.
great.
That's epic. That's epic. I hired
Um,
P to Bitcoin Magazine after a BitBlock Boom 21.
oh no, that's I mixed it up. P I met at BitBlock Boom
Yeah, that's when he
2021.
joined Bitcoin
Yeah.
Magazine, and I wish he was still at Bitcoin Magazine, but he's absolutely crushing at
The
Swan, so I'm
years were
happy for him.
long. The
Yeah,
years were
man.
long but short.
But like regardless, the reason I brought that up is like,
Yeah, why
look,
did we bring this up?
well, I was just trying to say like of all the criticism you can give Bitcoin Magazine,
Yeah. Well, we can get
One
into the
thing
criticism.
one thing that you can't criticize is I think, like, we've shown repeatedly that we're willing to take chances and we have balls. I would say
Yes.
being the first multi-coin company to go Bitcoin only, launching a Bitcoin conference that was actually, like, commercially, like,
Viable.
viable, um,
At scale.
at scale and scaling it, pushing the conference through in the depth of the pandemic, literally doing everything within our power to have an event in the pandemic, I think really shows our colors.
Yeah, what was the Rolling Stone article quote? It was like Bailey was like, if you're scared of dying, don't come or something.
Yeah, which is the perfect fucking
Mhm.
quote, man.
Yeah.
Like, and we did tell
That was
like, people don't
very
forget in those moments, we said, like, "Please, if you are scared of COVID, don't come. But
yeah.
if you're here for Bitcoin, please come."
Yeah. It was a very provocative quote. Very good. But it summed it up.
And then
And then also the magazine that we have here. I mean, this
yeah,
is like the highest quality magazine in the world. Like
definitely the
no
highest
one makes
quality
magazines
print
like this
magazine.
anymore. Yeah.
But, like, being able to say, "Hey, here's a controversial topic in Bitcoin, and then we are gonna innovate and use it to release our magazine cover, use Bitcoin to release a magazine cover." I think that's another moment and, hate us,
What
love
the
us,
inscription or
disagree.
whatever?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. We
we
don't agree on that one.
that's okay. I think that, I think we do agree that
It might
there
surprise
the
people. Not
ordinals
everyone in the
thing
org agrees on everything.
no, no, but, like, we do agree that the ordinal protocol has yet to prove itself. I do think that using Bitcoin and inscribing things on Bitcoin is super interesting, and I don't know if you agree with that one, put words in your mouth, but we've had some interesting conversations about
Well,
that.
I think inscriptions are interesting. I think ordinal theory is a scam.
Yeah, so I guess
Like
I would say
transferring the inscriptions between, like selling it and transferring it between people, is based on this external ordinal theory concept.
yeah, so I guess, like, what I would say is, like, if ordinal theory works, like, and people adopt it, then it's not a scam. But if it doesn't, then you definitely are like you're gonna get rugged because
Because
the
you're
only
not
thing that
transferring
Bitcoin
ownership.
yeah, well, ordinal theory transfers the ownership theoretically. The only thing that Bitcoin enforces is like the existence of the image that's inscribed. Bitcoin does
Right.
not enforce the ownership at all.
Right. The image is in the blockchain.
Yeah, 100%. But like again,
The
like
JPEG is in the blockchain. Yeah. But you
yeah,
released
that's
this
interesting.
cover. The
Mhm.
Assange cover was released.
Like that's how we showed it to the world. That's how we unveiled it is with Bitcoin. Like people don't know. Like we were planning on unveiling it like almost 8 days before that, but
The
it,
fees went up.
no, dude, we inscribed it
Oh, it
like
was like 4 gig. It was
like
a 4 meg
quite
block, right?
we inscribed the biggest block in the Bitcoin history. So this is the biggest inscription, if you will. when fees went pretty much you lost your bet. We inscribed it, and then fees just skyrocketed because of BRC20.
Well, I doubled down on the bet, and
Okay, well,
mempools haven't cleared since then. I'm directionally correct.
Well, we can argue about that. Maybe I just think the nature of Bitcoin is still too uncertain for us to say that mempools will never clear.
Yeah, I mean, mempools might. I'm being intentionally provocative to say at some point mempools will never clear again.
Most likely.
And I'll put my money where my mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, like the bets
repeatedly.
are way smaller than the fee rates I'm having to pay if mempools never clear again. So
what you're saying is you're fucked regardless. Is there another beer in there?
I'd be better off losing the bet, is what I'm saying in terms of actual cost to me.
Word. Sorry, we're interrupting the pod for me to get another beer. Thank you. American classic.
So should we get into criticism?
Yeah, like you got the feed filled up. Hit me.
I mean, they're not asking you the hard hitting ones.
Well, you could fill in the blanks if they're not going hard enough. Like, come on.
I'll
Preach,
ask you.
go.
This is not a softball conversation.
Like, if people say that, hey, this was a stat, just know that, from the get go, I said, ask me anything, and the freaks need to deliver on their end of the bargain.
Okay. Well, before we jump into criticisms, we have Dakota Brown in the comments saying, "Me and the wife ran into CK and Q twice at Bitcoin Miami. Wild time." Sounds like she had a great time.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad I got to bump into you, and that's the best part of the conference is getting to meet Bitcoiners.
Me and the wife. Okay, so we've seen the Wizards on stage right after RFK.
Yep.
So let's address that.
No.
Wizard in the room.
That's funny. The Wizards in the room. That's funny. Yeah. Wait, so why don't you? Can you articulate the criticism to the best of your ability, or should I?
Well, I will say that I can relate to the criticism.
Okay.
I don't fully agree with the criticism, but my thought is if you have a large audience in Bitcoin, and specifically of Bitcoin, because we all have common ownership. We all feel like we have common ownership of Bitcoin. There's many of us that have dedicated our lives to the Bitcoin movement and the Bitcoin mission. And as a result, people feel very connected to it. Obviously, that doubles down for someone like me who's been working with the team for years now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, not only do I have the Bitcoin connection, I also, know the team intimately, and am part of the team. So, like, it reflects on me and is part of my life's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a responsibility when you have a platform on who you decide to elevate and provide your platform to, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you are the largest Bitcoin podcast, you have a responsibility to your audience to maintain integrity and not put bad faith actors on stage. And if you have on your podcast, and if you have the largest Bitcoin conference or festival or whatever you want to call it, where you have 15,000 people there and you have millions of people watching on the live stream, like you have.
I wish it was that many people.
I'm always selling. I almost said hundreds of thousands.
I'll take millions.
I went to millions.
Bless up.
If you have millions of people watching on the live stream, you have a responsibility on who you choose to put on the stage. And, I think in general, the Bitcoin Magazine team does a great job of balancing all these different warring priorities and everything. And it's just crazy clusterfuck of running an event that size. Mm-hmm. But there's not enough respect and responsibility taken to who is put on the stage. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the case with the Wizards. I think specifically Udi acts in bad faith all the time. I think he's a bad faith actor. I think there was a decision that was made that maybe it would create drama and sell tickets and do all this stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it was a net negative for Bitcoin. I think there's many other voices that should have been promoted. And then to me, I mean, a big one for me, and people know I'm very vocal about it, is the Stacks guys. Like, I just do not think Stacks should be anywhere near our event. I don't think they should. They've never been on my podcasts. Like it's something that I practice what I preach. Like I would never have them at the park. Because I just think they act in bad faith. I think they mislead people. I think that is an outright scam in my opinion. I'm not like one of those quote unquote maxis, which I think is a derogatory term anyway, that call everything a scam. I think like Stacks is straight up they intentionally mislead people. They're trying to target naive retail users and bring them into their scheme.
I'm not as educated on Stacks as you.
You know why I'm educated on Stacks, by the way?
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago, Bitcoin Magazine was going to work with them, and I had to read like the 4-hour white paper to like educate myself on it to argue against it. And props are due. They weren't a part of the last conference. They weren't a part of last year. They did their own warring conference, and they did one this year too.
Yeah,
which they intentionally call Builders on Bitcoin Builders Conference when it's really just Stacks Pre-Mine Forever ICO conference. Like the whole scheme is.
Yeah, so 2 things. You mentioned the Stacks, so that's definitely something to bring up. You mentioned the UDI, which is completely something different.
Completely two different things.
So,
but the connection is this responsibility of who you put on stage, right? That's where people get angry. I think people are getting angry.
Yeah.
And passionate, and it's cool. It's great that people have passion. Like that's one of the reasons that Bitcoin will succeed.
No, absolutely. And like, look, hey, in the deep, like, unfortunately, like normally when I'm like working all day, I don't have time to be on Twitter. Unfortunately, when a lot of like the hubbub was going on, I was like taking a little bit of time off immediately after the conference, and unfortunately, I was like on Twitter too much. So I may have been a little like too exposed to like some of these conversations that were happening. But in terms of like, look, let's just address one at a time.
Okay.
Specifically, Udi and the Wizards. So, when people come on stage, first and foremost, at our conference, we don't necessarily endorse what they've done, or like we explicitly do not endorse what they've done in the past or what they will do in the future. What we are doing is we're bringing people on stage to have a relevant conversation. So you kind of expressed that, hey, period, there has to be like this responsibility for a specific, what you would consider a code of conduct. So I think that, we absolutely have a code of conduct that we're trying to enforce. For example, like Mike Novogratz, he was on stage at Bitcoin 22 and he talked about Luna. People people were upset that he shilled Luna, right?
I remember that.
So as part of our code of conduct, he was not on stage for Bitcoin 23, right? So he broke our
code. What happened with Luna?
Yeah, I mean, one, he broke a code of conduct by like shilling Luna on stage because it's a Bitcoin conference.
Right.
It doesn't matter what happened with Luna. That's where he broke the code.
Yeah, that one was unexpected to a degree.
Sure. Yeah. Right? So, but in general, like, it's impossible to have
the
a
other
show.
one was
But let me finish. In general, that was just one example, right? So he's like, Mike, we'd love to have Mike in the future as long as he's consistent in being relevant to Bitcoin. He runs Galaxy Digital. Galaxy is one of the largest miners in the space. Galaxy is one of the public companies with the most amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They are relevant to Bitcoin. That's what we are honing in on. So what we are endorsing is a conversation on stage that is relevant to Bitcoin. We don't endorse what they do on social media before or after. So in terms of like the wizard conversation, having the conversation at all, I think we're bold to host the conversation. I think the conversation in terms of like the great ordinal debate, inscriptions, what's happening on Bitcoin, how to bring more adoption to Bitcoin, what kind of adoption do we want? That's an important conversation to have, period. I think there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin space that don't want to have the conversation, that have already made their mind up. I would say like mathematically speaking, in terms of like how fees are going and what the blockchain incentives are doing, like they're out of place. Like we need to be talking about this. So like, let's just talk about
things there, right?
No, I'm qualifying the conversation.
Okay.
Right. So I think the topic, like we need to be having that conversation. I think it is still a debate because there's people who have strong opinions of both.
I agree that the topic is important.
Right. So I think one, that's bold to have that topic because we've seen people pretty much take a majority opinion and stick to it in a strong way. And I just, I don't think that me or the programming team or leadership at Bitcoin Magazine think that this topic has been concluded, right? So I think that there's important that there's a debate there. In terms of like Udi and Eric, okay, so yes, I think it's fair to say, look, Udi, you shilled some things that are super regrettable. You should own that up. Like it's
He
bad
never
faith not
has.
to. It's bad faith not to. Okay. But in terms
FTX Luna,
name it. Yeah. Like
yeah,
I don't double click any of that.
Tornado
And
Cash.
Udi, it is in your best interest, in my opinion, to own up to any mistake that you might have, be a man and own up to it. But, are Udi and Eric bringing up good and interesting points about Bitcoin if you listen to them? Are they important parts of like the counter movement? I think 100% they are absolutely relevant. I think that's subjective for sure. And like, hey, you want to say that they are irrelevant? Okay, well, Rene Picard, who I think is like a respected member of the Lightning community who's done a lot of great stuff, like 4 days ago, he put out like a long thread about, how he's thinking about Bitcoin differently because of Udi and Eric in particular, and asking for them to comment on things, right? And a lot of people are commenting on that thread. I think we could maybe link it or something like that if people want to look it up. But like, there's a real conversation here. Those people are an integral part of that conversation. And then in terms of actually setting up that panel and the timing of that panel, first, who is on the panel? One, bless up to Matt Coralla, who was on the panel from my understanding from the get go, and was willing to have the conversation. Bless up to Shinobi for stepping up to fill the void. We cycled through several people who were on the opposing ordinals and wizards side of the debate. We cycled through multiple people who are on the wizard side of the debate. And, we try to put together the best panel possible. And, I think that Udi and Eric, when engaged and locked in on that conversation, they were ready to go. And, again, I think Shinobi and Matt did a good job. And, when I listened back to that conversation, there's some elements that were clowny. There's some elements that weren't ideal. I wish that maybe they had gotten deeper, but ultimately, I thought that there was like some good points made. There's some thought provoking things made that all panelists said, and there's a lot of real talk on like how are we going to move Bitcoin from 0.001% adoption to global adoption? Like, it's not going to be easy. And I thought that all the panelists made good points. Like, go and watch it again. Again, there's some parts that are like meh. There's some parts that are like, okay, I thought about that. That was great. Like, so in terms of qualifying this conversation, if Udi does something that, I might not necessarily endorse in the future, like that happens. Like the conference can't scale, the conference can't work. We can't have we can't have a big tent event for the Bitcoin ecosystem if like I have to endorse 100% of someone's social media
But that's a
history.
cop out, CK.
I mean, that's a baseline
That's a straw
reality,
man.
but
I'm not saying you have to endorse 100. I'm saying bear like, and look, I've been in the internal conversations, right? Like, so like I know it is difficult. I know like this idea of like the dream is like some kind of objective analysis on who is good faith and who is bad faith, and it just doesn't fucking exist. Like you can't. There's and there has been attempts have been made to, okay, this is our policy, right? And there's been plenty of speakers that never touch the stage that no one ever knows about, right? Because they didn't pass that basic check, right? This objective
okay.
framework, right, on who goes on stage and who doesn't go on stage, right? And like, and the org deserves a ton of credit for that, right? But no one ever gives the org credit for that because they don't see it, right? Because it doesn't happen. And I've had this conversation with Rizzo at length. This idea of like, you never get credit for the things that get filtered because no one knows it happens or whatever, right? And it's just like, it's the unseen whatever. But my point is that's not the point.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not looking for that credit. That's just us doing our job.
but the point is
Mhm.
is that it is who you put on stage, you have a responsibility for. And like I regardless of how I feel about who was chosen to put on stage, the thing that angers me the most and disappoints me the most is when the argument is leveled that we don't endorse these people and we have no responsibility for it. If someone comes on my podcast, I am responsible for that. I don't endorse their life decisions, right? But like I take like if someone came on my show
Mhm.
and then scammed a bunch of people or acted in bad faith or whatever,
Mhm.
like there is some responsibility on me for that.
Mhm.
And I would have trouble sleeping at night. I would go out and accept responsibility for that. And
Mhm.
it to me it feels a little bit cop out, and it feels a little bit like a straw man, this idea that like, oh, we can't endorse everybody, you know,
Well,
and
I mean,
we take no responsibility
I
for it.
think that there's a lot of straw mans leveled against us too. Like it's
100%.
a full shitcoin event, and the straw man like like the straw man that like, oh, the open source stage and Bitcoin week are the real event, and it's like we planned that too, guys. But regardless, like let's talk about, who we let on stage. And like, first of all, what we do take responsibility for is what is said on stage and what is said on the live stream and what is said ultimately through our channel. And again, the best way that we can quality control is obviously on the front end. On the back end is with recourse if someone breaks our quality control mechanisms. And as far as I'm concerned, in terms of that talk, they didn't break our quality control on the actual conversation. Like, they talked about the subject, like they brought up good points. Not all the points were amazing. Some of the points were provocative and trollish. But the actual conversation itself was like it didn't break our rules. So like I totally feel like when people get mad at us because someone talked about an altcoin on stage, 100% against our rules. And we didn't have them back the next year. And we definitely are responsible for that. In terms of like, okay, are we responsible from keeping like real bad faith actors off? And how do you define those real bad faith actors? Like, first of all, defining those real bad faith actors is difficult to get consensus with, and people have different trade offs that they kind of
Yeah.
ultimately make. But we of course have to get better. We of course have to get better. And there's trade-offs. Like there's people who want to get money in no matter what. There's people who are thinking quality no matter what at the event. And like everyone is working hard as possible and fighting and grinding to have the final result that makes that makes the most sense. And then at the end, you say these were good trade-offs, these were bad trade-offs. Like let's not make these bad trade-offs again. So like, after the event, I wrote down all the bad trade-offs we made, and I messaged all the people that made those bad trade-offs, and I try to have a conversation about it and try to affect it next
Right.
year. There's so many fucking trade-offs that we're making all the time. And something I'll be remiss to not talk about on this call is like, what is our like audience and mission and like our business kind of rationale? I definitely want to tease that
I
out
like
on
that
this
we're on a
call.
call.
Or sorry, not on this call, but on
We're
this
on a
on
call.
this
We're sitting a foot away from each other having
yeah,
beers.
But I want to talk about that
These are
stuff.
the best calls.
But I think it's important too. Like, hey, like the event is a business. We're trying to have a very large business. We're trying to bring people together. We're trying to do things at scale that need to happen. That can only happen at scale. Like they can't happen in a small time environment. We're always making trade offs. People have different objectives. All of us are like literally everyone at the company is a Bitcoiner. So I saw some things where people were like, are there even Bitcoiners at Bitcoin Magazine? Like, I think Matt can endorse the fact that like 95, 96, 97% of the company that are putting their real heart and soul into this thing are Bitcoiners.
They're ride or die Bitcoiners.
Like these people are like, they're making sacrifices to work in Bitcoin.
I mean, potentially to a fault, even
Yeah.
like CK and the rest of the team, like they prioritize Bitcoiner first. It's like, okay, we can train you into this role. It's like, oh, you've never run a conference before. It's like, fine, it's okay, but you're a Bitcoiner, so then you can figure out the rest of the shit.
Yeah. Hey, no, we like on the scale of like how important it is that you're a Bitcoiner, it's super important at Bitcoin Magazine while we're hiring you. So like, we are truthfully, honestly making a good faith effort to do our best. And again, like I can tease out any of the details there. We're also truthfully, honestly not trying to bow down to the mob. And we're truthfully, honestly have always been consistently focusing on what is the relevant conversation to Bitcoin and what is not mob or what is not groupthink authorized. And just a great example, Bitcoin 2019, guess what we were getting heat for? It wasn't killing people. It was inviting Jihan Wu on. And, Jihan Wu at the time, the CEO of Bitcoin, the CEO of Bitmain, probably the biggest muscle behind Bitcoin Cash. And we wanted to be like,
And it was
hey,
fresh still at
and it
that
was
point.
still fresh in 2019. Like, this
Most of the
is,
new freaks have no idea.
yeah. So, and we were
One of the most controversial actors in Bitcoin.
one
Definitely a bad faith
one of the
actor.
most impactful, one of the
Yeah.
most controversial, in the past has been absolutely bad faith actor. He's still relevant today as Bitmain is still one of the most important and impactful hardware manufacturers. But in 2019, like, he was completely taboo. And, he never showed up to the event, but we extended, an olive branch and not said like, it's okay that you attack Bitcoin, but like,
Let's talk
hey,
about it.
let's talk about it. So I think like that's been consistent.
But
And
this is part of the reason why like
yeah.
a set framework
Mm-hmm.
is just really you can't really it just doesn't exist. Because so like I supported that at the time. I mean, it took me a little while to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time I supported the Jihan decision. It made
Mm-hmm.
sense. It was a highly relevant conversation. It's a guy who was extremely influential in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
He attacked Bitcoin, but he was extremely influential in Bitcoin. And it's just hard
Never
to
said
have.
sorry too, you know?
He never apologized,
No.
no, but he did with his wallet, so it's
Yeah,
okay.
with his
Same with
business, right?
Roger.
And I
But
don't think Rogers. I don't know. I can't speak on Roger at all. I think
Rogers
Jihan
lost
has
a
done
lot of
more
money.
for. I think Rogers done. Or Jihan has come back to Bitcoin a lot more than Rogers from what.
Yeah, no, yeah. Roger just anyway. That's a tragic story on his end.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, Jihan bent the knee and just came back. And I mean, at the end of the day, he decided during the Bitcoin Cash War, if we want to relitigate the Bitcoin Cash War, he decided that he didn't want to kill his golden goose and never full on attacked Bitcoin. Like he never moved his hash over to Bitcoin Cash in a real way, and he could have. And that's just because the incentives work.
Yep.
While Roger made some really bad decisions and kind of aped the fuck into Bitcoin Cash and lost a lot of money. But okay, but the key here is, do you agree with me that there's responsibility with who goes on stage? Like even like I'm not intimately involved in the programming of the Nakamoto stage. Like I feel bad when there's bad faith actors on stage. Like I take responsibility for that. Like there's responsibility there.
Yeah, no, again, there 100% is responsibility. There's responsibility of every element of the event. There is 100% responsibility of who goes on stage, the result, and then how we react to it. But there's also a tremendous amount of different just incentives and that
Yeah.
are important in putting on this business and important in doing what we're trying to do at scale. And it's difficult to get it right, and it's more difficult than people think. But at the same time, different opinions within the org need to get data points in order to affect change.
Right.
So it's like, one, your obvious recommendation is not always that obvious, especially with all the context that you don't know. And then two, like, different players are accumulating data points and then affecting change as we have iterations. And like, I one of the feedbacks that I was getting when I was on Twitter too much, a week and a half ago,
Many such cases.
was that, like, Bitcoin Magazine is not taking responsibility for the mistakes we made. So it's like, I feel that. At the same time, like, we just did something really hard and felt really good about it and did a lot of things right, and we're just people that are, I think there's people that are feeling attacked.
Yeah.
So, like, it's hard to, like, bet. And again, we also wanna appear strong, like, you don't want to, like, quote unquote bend the knee to people yelling at you on the internet. Like, that's also not, like, necessarily a wise thing to do. So it's like, trying to manage, like, we're learning, taking data points and trying to make a better product, every single year and every single iteration. Managing, kind of how we appear in the audience, and then knowing that, like, every single person at the company is a Bitcoiner on Bitcoin Twitter that is, like, effectively in a family with all the people that are yelling at them. Like, all of these elements, it makes it a complex situation for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree that it's, yeah, people just don't see the behind the scenes. Anyway, I think to me, the Wizards thing was a decision I wouldn't have made. I don't think it was the best decision, but to me, it was mostly irrelevant. It's like neither here nor
Well,
there.
so let's talk
That's
about
not
the
the
timing.
bigger.
Yeah, and you finish your point, and then I want to talk about the timing.
I mean, to me, the Wizards is. I mean, I don't think Udi belonged on stage. I don't know what he's actually done in Bitcoin except for gaslight Bitcoiners and act in bad faith. To this day, I've been blocked by him, and he like will tag me, for instance, and pretend like, oh, why isn't Odell responding? But he has me blocked, so I can't see it or respond to it. Behavior like that is just indicative of people that are acting in bad faith, right? And it's like I said, it's very hard to balance that out and have kind of some objective framework. But we both know, like, you're running an event, you have very finite time on stage. It is the most valuable, scarce resource for an event. And I just think it was a bad decision, but it was mostly irrelevant to me. Like, that is not really, um, to me, that is not the main criticism in
Well,
terms of responsibility on
yeah, I
stage.
think when and if I would just push back really quick, like to you is relevant to a lot of people on the programming team. It was a very relevant conversation, relevant enough, and Udi being relevant enough to that conversation that it was worth the heat to bring him on. And we're always what we are trying to do, whether people agree with it or not, is just have maximum relevance. Like that's and boldly so. Like we'll do it
Yeah.
boldly, whether the majority or the minority likes it or not, we'll do it boldly. So we can agree to
But
disagree
the
on
important
the
thing,
relevance, but at the same time, like I think it's clear. Like I get what you're saying. We need data points. We need to affect change internally. We also, I think it's pretty important that ultimately what we should be held accountable for is the decisions we make and what people do on stage and then how we react to it, as a complete package. I don't think it's fair to like criticize us. Okay, we made a bad decision. I get it. But I don't think it's fair to like criticize that in a bubble when like the reaction, the response, the next iteration, is not put into that
oh no, I
complete
agree.
analysis.
And like, but my point is, the point I was trying to make is the biggest thing to me is the responsibility aspect of it, right? Is that there is a responsibility. I think we should accept responsibility. Like, I think there should be and like, here's the thing. It's like, I don't feel like I'm necessarily criticizing your decision or the Bitcoin Magazine team's decision because I'm part of the fucking team. So like,
Yeah.
I'm criticizing how we've reacted as an org in certain
Hmm.
situations. I think that there should be some responsibility taken.
Hmm.
And like, okay, we appreciate your feedback. Uh, maybe the tone wasn't appreciated, but we we appreciate your feedback, and we aim to do our best, and we understand there's a responsibility there, right? Um, that's kind of where I come from in as that
Hmm.
perspective. I think there's probably a large portion of the org that agrees on that front. Because at the end of the day, like you said, orgs are made up of people. Like, they're not just some, and
Hmm.
Twitter is just horrible as a platform in that regard because everyone just wants to get their soundbite. There's no nuance. There's no long form conversation. It's one of the reasons why I think it's really good to have this,
Yeah.
as you said, call
Hmm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. This conversation.
on air.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about the timing? Is that what
Yeah.
you
Well,
wanted
okay.
to bring up,
Let's
the
jump
timing?
into the timing.
So RFK goes on, gives a ridiculous
Yeah.
speech.
Well, first of all, RFK going on and giving a ridiculous speech was in no way guaranteed. In hindsight, like obviously he
I was
did
on the
it.
news
Like that
desk
was
afterwards. I was
awesome.
like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah, exactly. Like that in the top moment, it was like my jaw was dropping that he was saying these things.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was not expected at all. That could have been the most vanilla speech for all we knew. He could have just showed up and there was a dud.
He was like, "I like crypto and blockchain."
Yeah, like
That's
that
what politicians usually
that
say.
that was 100% in the cards. And then, people probably would be like, Bitcoin Magazine dropped a dud on RFK and then
Yeah.
put Wizards on the stage. But okay, so that conversation with RFK materialized like within less than 20 days of the conference
Right.
happening.
That's another thing people don't realize.
So the logistical nightmare of like moving things around on the program within that close of the event is insane.
Yes.
Um, ultimately, if we were to take all things in consideration, knowing everything that actually materialized, would we have potentially like reorganized our schedule a little bit in terms of like changed up how we did the primetime stuff or whatever, or segregated them differently? Maybe, but it was way less obvious in the time. What was obvious is like, RFK is coming in. We need a primetime spot for him. Like, we need to find a way to make that work. The team found a way to make that work. It was a huge success.
Yeah.
And then the Wizards came on.
Well, no. First, me, Dylan, Jesse Myers, and Nolan came on because everyone was watching through the live stream, and we were on the news desk responding to it.
Totally. And you guys.
So I take a little bit of offense on people giving shit on the timing thing. I think we handled ourselves really well because we were just sitting there just like, what did this politician just say about Bitcoin? It was like self-custody, hold your own, use your own keys, hold your own node. Like, I believe in the Canadian truckers. Like, we were just, we did not expect it. But anyway, we were next, and then the Wizards.
And the Wizards came on. Okay. And then, so first, and like, we started knowing that like things kind of felt a little weird when I was backstage, and backstage, like, the tense energy was insane. Like, it was almost like this energy of like maybe that there's going to be something super effing negative that could happen at any moment, because this guy whose family history of getting assassinated,
both his uncle and his dad
we're right there. So like, there's this energy of like something important is happening. Like, I hope nothing fucking horrible happens. Yeah. and this is super serious and tense in the background. And also, like, what the fuck is this guy actually saying? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then like there's these guys dressed up in Wizards like hanging out also backstage.
Yeah.
And Rizzo's like prepping with them, and Shinobi and Matt are with them. And like, so in that moment, it kind of was like, okay, like maybe these moments don't match up. It did not become that obvious until right then. Like,
yeah, no, timing's hard.
So it's like,
timing's super difficult.
So if you want to say it's like unforgivable, well, it's like, one, like, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, we helped make that moment happen in the first place. Secondly, it's like you're showing that you have absolutely no idea on like all the moving parts and the complexity of that stuff. And it's like, in hindsight, yeah, it's always 2020. But like, leading up to that moment, it was not obvious that was going to be the case. And ultimately, these type of like missteps or whatever, they happen. But if you want to say that like, okay, like, big high net worth individuals are not going to allocate to Bitcoin because of this, like, that's absolutely,
you're just a fucking bear.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, guys, look, the Bitcoin conference, first of all, like, we let people on stage in full ski masks and weird ass glasses.
And also, you don't run Bitcoin.
Like, but no, like, we let Green Man on, like, guy in all Green Man, like, outfit on stage. Like,
Gigi's a fucking legend.
Whatever. Like, hey, if you want to come up in a carrot mask and like you want to preserve your privacy, we let you. We take you seriously. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. So like, don't say like we need to simp to these high net worth allocators that can't take Bitcoin seriously enough because there's some guy dressed up on stage doing something they don't like. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And some people who were levying that criticism against us, I don't even want to necessarily get into that, but I don't think that they're coming from an appropriate perspective in any way. So ultimately, like that's bearish. Bitcoin adoption is going to happen because of two things: need or greed. Okay, and it has nothing to do with what people saw on stage. And ultimately, like, look at this event. It's freaking Comic-Con meets Bitcoin meets Consumer Electric Festival. Like, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. And we have people on stage, not necessarily in suits. That's okay.
Fuck the suits.
Like exactly.
My policy would be no suits allowed.
But okay, so like, if you want to hold the double standard against us, that like we not only have to like have NIMS wear whatever they want and be comfortable on stage, and we also have to like always like,
if I had to choose between Wizards, I choose Wizards.
Okay, well, there you go. There's Matt. So
it's hard to have a set framework.
Again, well, we can't please everyone. It's you either make an open source event for people inside the events, or you get flamed because there's Wizards on stage, or there's not enough suits, or there's too many suits, or the politicians are saying too many nice things about Bitcoin.
The timing argument is bullshit. The timing argument is like, if you run an event, like, first of all, you see two things. First of all, actually timing everything out is a fucking pain in the ass. And then when you get towards the end, any little movement, you have to contact so many different stakeholders along that chain. Like, if you move one panel, that's 4 people. You got to move them somewhere else. And you have all these
every externalities is like 50 that happen. Different movements.
Especially
at the end.
It is fucking insane. And the RFK thing came at the last minute, the timing stuff, whatever. The second thing is a lot of people you would just not expect. The egos are fucking real. You have to deal with people. You have to deal with people and you have to deal with scarce stage space. Like, it is fucking hard. I have so much respect and sympathy. I think sympathy is the right word for P running the programming last year and Alex McShane and Nolan running the programming this year. Like, they have to deal with so many egos and moving pieces with all these different pieces. Timing, I have no concern. Honestly, as far as Wizards go, I just think Udi can go fuck himself. That's just my own personal opinion. But the timing stuff is absolutely ridiculous.
If you're mad at us about the timing, be mad at us about making the RFK thing happen.
Yeah.
That because hey, at the beginning of the RFK thing, if anyone wants to take credit for the RFK thing happening, whose name did RFK mention at the beginning of his speech? He mentioned David Bailey's name. So that's all you need to know is it
It was
was
a long speech for me.
it was
I literally watched it on the news desk.
We were making that happen, guys. Like, he's the one who delivered the words, but we set the stage, and like the complexity in setting the stage, it's not easy. And it's like people are like, "Oh, go smaller." It's like, well, the only reason like that guy's security is okay with him showing up to that building is because they know this security that we hired that is working this level scale of events.
Right.
Like, it's like these things don't just happen.
Like,
because
RFK doesn't show up to 1,000-person event.
No, absolutely
period.
not. Absolutely not. He needs to know that it's the right audience. He needs to know it's the right scale. And he needs to know that the production and the security and the professionalism are at the right level. And again, like, that happens all the way down the line. And look, like, again, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about like what is our actual ambitions, like, with us doing this event. Like, what is BTC Inc. trying to do with this event?
Yeah.
Because I think, like, frankly, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance, with people who attend the event, observe the event. They have their own goals in mind and what they want and what they like try to imagine into the conference. But like, we're on a mission too. Like, we wake up every day to do this for a reason, and we have a goal too. And I think it's important to for our audience to know our goal, and maybe we haven't done a super good job communicating that goal. But I think it's important that we do that so that way people understand what we're trying to do and can kind of understand our decision making.
No, yeah, that makes sense to me. We have Fick221 in the comments saying excited for TabConf. Everyone should go to TabConf. It's
Great
a really
event.
amazing event in Atlanta in the fall. By the way, a lot of people don't know it's not named after the old time soft drink Tab. It's actually the Atlanta Bitcoin Conference. So it's in Atlanta. Great vibes. Huge shout out to Tidwell. And team
And there's a team behind there.
There's a huge team.
People hitting me up asking me for stuff.
Brianna, there's a huge team over there. Huge
Bullish.
shout out to them. Go check it out. I mean, one of the cool things about Bitcoin is that we have so many different events and we have so many different venues and platforms and podcasts and shows. And like, people don't realize, like, in terms of Bitcoin only stuff, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we started Rabbit Hole Recap 4.5 years ago, I know it's hard to believe there was like 3 Bitcoin only podcasts. That was less than 5 years ago. So it's really cool seeing this
I wasn't
whole
even fully
ecosystem
Bitcoin
develop.
only.
No, yeah,
I was doing POV crypto.
You were my shitcoiner friend.
I was friends with your shitcoiner friend. Come on.
Yeah, you were the Bitcoiner side of that.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
People should listen to the POV crypto we did way back when about Ethereum proof of stake. I think it's aged really wonderfully. Anyway, no one's giving us freaks. You're not like giving us real questions or comments in the thing. Are you fine with me continuing on my
please
inner criticism?
If you want to hit me with the criticisms, if you want to represent the freaks, can I just say, we are big fans of TabConf. No one is a bigger fan and supporter of the different Bitcoin meetups and Bitcoin conferences that are happening around the world, than us. So we do our best to support. Not sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little. Every event organizer, wants Bitcoin Magazine involved. and what they're doing. They want to take inspiration from our conference, and we support all of them. So we appreciate the Bitcoin community, appreciate the TabConf, appreciate BitBlock Boom, appreciate Pacific Bitcoin, appreciate Baltic Honey Badger, BTC Prague, Bitcoin Indonesia, like name the lot, so big love to all of them. And big love to all the meetups for sure. So I think it's about expanding the pie. Like hardcore Bitcoiners, best practitioners should be able to hang out, right? And the same group of people, the same people who are building the industry should be able to come together and have a big industry event and talk to other people too. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like we are expanding the pie, and like this is why Bitcoin's so effective, because it kind of has this funnel, right? So the Bitcoin conference is really freaking useful at the top of the funnel. Like that is what we're trying to build, and that's why I think it's important to talk about that.
Yeah. And also, you've never run a 15,000 person event until you run a 15,000 person event. On the meetup side, huge shout out to George McHale. He championed a lot of the meetup supporting initiatives at the org, and I thought the Bitcoin games was really cool. He had like the Bitcoin games where all the different meetup organizers were competing, kind of like the Bitcoin Meetup Olympics at the event.
It's tight.
And to me, like that is like one of the most bullish fundamentals of Bitcoin is
that was partially
the grassroots Bitcoin community.
That was partially inspired by the Bitcoin Park grassroots Bitcoin.
We're doing it again in September. Grassroots Bitcoin meetup organizers only from around the world. And we had George there, and he presented, and it was great. But anyway, that was awesome. So, I mean, I think the Wizards are mostly a distraction. Like, once again, I have my own issues with Udi. Don't think he acts in good faith. I think, Eric is one of my favorite shitcoiners. Like, I don't have much issue with Eric, but that's besides the point.
I've learned a lot from Eric.
I think that's mostly a distraction.
I've learned a lot from Udi too. I don't have Udi derangement syndrome, but at the same time, like I can see why people don't like him. And I think it's like maybe it's like almost the same energy as why people don't like Trump. It's like Trump can do good or bad things. People have Trump derangement syndrome, but Trump's kind of a bully, is maybe not super honest, maybe he treats people the wrong way. I kind of categorize them in similar buckets. Udi, if you're listening to this, you might be offended by that, but I think it might be accurate.
The difference is like I was never friends with Trump.
Yeah.
I was friends with Udi. I respected Udi, and then he just started gaslighting me. But that's once again, I think that this is a distraction.
Can I just say that, like, Udi may have done that. Other Bitcoiners do that. Like,
100%.
Like,
and they can also go fuck themselves.
Character.
They can also go fuck themselves.
Our event is we're honing in on what is a relevant conversation. That's our number one objective with the programming. We will do that boldly. We'll do that in the face of criticism we've done in the past. We'll continue doing it into the future.
And I look forward to the Taliban being on stage. I know Bailey needs it when he says it.
The least favorite thing. My least favorite thing David Bailey ever fucking says is saying that, man. But,
he said it right here in this studio on Dispatch.
So, hey, I've said my piece on that. I'm down to continue talking about it if you want to.
The Wizards are a distraction. My bigger issue is Stacks people on stage, is Bobby Lee of Ballet Crypto on stage during Industry Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's this balancing act of, yes, sponsors pay the bills. They're the ones who make this type of event possible. But like, where do you draw the line on like who is welcome on stage and who is not welcome on stage?
Yeah, no. So this year we tried to do this idea of like doing like an industry press release at the end of Industry Day, and kind of just trying to like manage that because people want to get on stage and talk to the media, talk to the audience, talk about their products.
Right.
Our editorial and sponsorship criteria is we don't necessarily like we don't have the ability to technically audit every product.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's products that are widely known by Bitcoin enthusiasts as like not necessarily being up to their snuff. I think there's products that most likely are at our event that are less known that aren't up to snuff too, that we don't necessarily get grief for.
Yeah.
It's difficult, again, like when you're trying to run a business, like one, attracting sponsors that fit our sponsorship criteria, giving them what they want, which is everyone and their mother wants stage time, and doing it
Everyone wants stage
and
time.
then doing it in a format that like you would say is responsible, you would say, other people would say is acceptable, whatever. So like we're definitely trying to like toe that line and figure out like what makes the most sense, both maximally commercially and maximally in terms of like what's responsible on stage. We are continuing to experiment. Like I don't want to talk about a specific sponsor
Okay.
just because I don't want to isolate any specific sponsor, but we're trying to experiment with our criteria and experiment with our programming policy and format and how we manage things to find the best of both worlds. I think in some cases, like moving forward, we're gonna have to bite the bullet. Like there's gonna have to be opportunity costs that we forego because
Yep.
it's what we need to do for credibility, for PR, for whatever. And like there's going to be other opportunities where we're going to make game time decisions where we're going to have to like understand what's happening more deeply and try to like evolve our policy. Like I think what people don't understand is like one, we're doing a event where we have to interact with the entire ecosystem and where we have to draw a specific editorial line, and then the entire ecosystem is constantly changing too.
Yep.
It's like
Very fluid.
it's so fluid, and it's just like again, like what people think is like the most obvious decision, like this company equal bad. Like it just depends on the criteria. So like for a lot of like what I would consider like hardcore Bitcoin enthusiasts, Bitcoin best practicers, I think that there's some fair criticism. I think that we can take that on the chin. My cop out is that these business decisions are simply not easy to make, and every single iteration we try to do a better job. And there's a lot of stakeholders, like Bitcoin maximalists that attend our event are one of multiple stakeholders that we're dealing with. Are the conference organizers are other stakeholders that are dealing with. The finance guy is a stakeholder. Business people in the space, people who are trying to move their initiatives forward, people who really believe in what they're doing, even though some Bitcoin maximalists don't believe in what they're doing. Like all of these elements we have to weigh. So it's not easy. Uh, we don't always make the right decision. Things are always more obvious in hindsight. And again, going into next year, we're going to be making decisions, right? Like we're not getting grief in this moment for some of the decisions that we should be getting grief for, honestly. And
The two that I brought up, you don't really get much grief for.
sure, and
Yeah.
I mean, look, guys, there's probably more, and there's infinite places where there's like where we don't deserve grief, and there's infinite places where we knocked it out of the park where we don't get credit. It's
Yeah.
fine. We take that in stride.
No, I mean, once again, I think the majority. Yeah, it was a great event. It was a really good event. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's very difficult.
Matt, you're too kind to me.
I mean, this is
Are
hard
there
for
more
me.
freaks that want to slay me.
I mean,
Like,
you're
come
a
on,
brother.
what are these freaks?
You're a brother, so it's they're not being that critical of you. So I'm just being critical.
Okay, that's good.
And like I said, I
should
like
we
to be
hype up
critical of us.
Nashville?
We should, but I just want to say that you do agree with me that there's a responsibility there about like who's on stage, and as an org we can do better about that. Like I think, like, do you agree like Mashinsky should have never been on stage? I'm just gonna say the name because now he's just there's no
Yeah.
bridges to be burned there.
Yeah. So Mashinsky on stage. He was on stage at Bitcoin 2019.
Yeah.
I would say like the difference between Celsius and BlockFi were not as obvious then.
Yeah.
And we were trying to run a business, and we're working with companies that operate using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. 2021, I would say like Mashinsky really started to like show himself as like a not good actor. And he was on stage and he was a sponsor, and there's some like classic things, and again, like people in hindsight would say like things are more obvious, but there's just classic moments as industries evolve, and like making business decisions is not always easy, but he
was on stage last year too, right?
Well, and then last year he was supposed to go on stage with
Right.
the technology minister of Ukraine or the innovation minister of Ukraine, and he did not have the right person, and he was trying to weasel his way on stage, and our boy P blocked that,
Yeah.
right?
I
And
remember that.
and again, people don't understand, like, at Bitcoin 2021, Mayweather, who didn't do a good job on stage and was never invited again, he was trying to go
Understatement.
on stage with a Ethereum Max shirt, and we blocked that too.
I was standing back there,
Mhm.
and you will never be able to capture
I wish you filmed
at
it.
Brandon's face when he was trying to convince him to change his shirt. And I mean, Mayweather's fucking huge, fucking massive. He's wearing it's not just an Ethereum shirt, it's Ethereum Max. It was
Yeah,
like extra
Ethereum
shitcoin shirt.
Max.
And he got him to change the shirt. He was like, "You're not allowed on stage unless you change
And
the
his
shirt."
posse was there. So not
Yeah.
only is Mayweather there,
But
but
you
his
should have seen
posse
his
is there.
like straight white. Like it was
It takes
I
a
mean,
lot
as
of
it should
bravery to
be.
do that. It takes a lot of
But
bravery to
anyway,
do that.
you agree with me that there's a responsibility to try like I don't know. I'm not saying it's an easy solution, but there's a responsibility to avoid, the next Celsius being on stage or being a sponsor of the event. Like, do you agree that there's a responsibility there?
Absolutely. Look, I've never denied that there's a responsibility, and pretty much I've just made excuses as on why it's not that obvious and why it's not that easy, especially given all the context of running the
Yeah.
event, right? So there's a lot of critics who, again, like, you can call Binance insolvent today and say you're
Yeah.
never going to do business with Binance today. Okay. Like, are we going to say no to doing business with Binance right now? Given that there are people on the internet who are saying that they're doing things like wrong. Well, according to our editorial, and I'm sorry that I'm mentioning a specific company, but according to our editorial guidelines, we do business with companies that are uh, using the Bitcoin blockchain, using Bitcoin natively. So we don't allow wrapped Bitcoin to be counted. It has to be native Bitcoin usage. Uh, we allow those companies, and we allow them to be on stage if they're relevant to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Like, if something who knows what will happen in the future happens to that business, like, it's very, and we had CZ on stage in the future, or in between that
Yeah.
happening, like, you could say that he was a scammer from day one. You could say that. Like, you could easily get us. Are we going to make that opportunity happen? Given the fact that this is the most impactful organization at spreading Bitcoin usage across the world? Like, are we
Binance.
gonna, like, one of them, yeah, in terms of this,
No, I mean, they're dominating, especially
yeah,
in emerging markets like
they're
Africa and Latin
absolutely
America.
dominate. They're banking more people than anyone else, as far as I'm concerned. Like, are we going to host that conversation? Yes, we're going to host that conversation, especially if it's relevant. So, like, I'm not saying, like, look, Mashinsky was never at that level. Celsius was never
Yeah.
at that level, but, like, and maybe it was obvious that, like, they were complete shit, and I personally never would have put any money in them, and I would tell anyone, don't put your money in any yield, invest, any program
Right.
at all. Like, hold your Bitcoin. Like, if
Sample stack
anything,
sets.
it's like stack less sats and focus more on doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Like, that would be my advice, because you're not bullish enough. So you already know me. But, like, like, again, like, when you're doing this type of event, when you're trying to bring the entire ecosystem together, not just like the best Bitcoin best practices together, like, there's gonna be potholes, there's gonna be issues, there's gonna be areas where you made mistakes. In some moments, like, you can look back and be like, wow, that was a classic moment, like Mayweather. In
Yeah.
some areas, you look back and be like, God, like, let's never make that effing mistake again. Like Mashinsky. So we just have to constantly take that feedback, and we have to constantly try to hone in and tune the lever of, like, doing something big and profitably, doing it well enough to bring in and entice new people, and doing it to the level where it's going to be as useful and enthusiastic and exciting to, like, the people who are most bought into this ecosystem. Like, finding that mix and nailing it, it's just not easy. We do our best. We truly do. I think we are successful in many, many ways, but in other ways, we have to do it better next year.
Yeah.
Like, there's no excuses there. We just have to learn and do it better next year.
Yeah. I mean, that's I mean, we're definitely aligned on that front. You answered the question very early on, and then you had a nice passionate rant afterwards.
Okay, there we go.
But
Same
it's
here.
just a responsibility to do better. The name of the word of the day on this show today is responsibility.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
say humble sacksats and be responsible.
there you
Like,
go.
that's like the unspoken part
And
that's the
it's
hardest.
difficult. Like I said, I respect that it's difficult. I've seen how the sausage is made. Like so many people on the team are family to me. Like I just it's I want it to be clear that it's coming from a place of love, and it's more of a um like a parent. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed kind of framework. But look, dude, your brother, we have 15 minutes left.
Shit. We've been
Um
going for a while, huh?
yeah, we've been going for a long time. It's a little bit too down. It's a good real talk conversation. But like, what are we excited about
Yeah, no, we need
for
to get excited.
Amsterdam? What are we excited about for Nashville? What are we excited about for Bitcoin? Let's wrap it up on a strong suit.
Well, I mean, first of all, the conversations that I'm having with Nashville stakeholders and the people of Tennessee about bringing this conference here, unbelievable. Like yesterday, I had a like hour-long hangout with a diehard, longtime Bitcoiner that is building a media company in Nashville, and this guy can't wait to just like to unleash, like both of his passions at once. This Nashville,
Yep.
Bitcoin, and there's just so much of that. Like it, you've been here for over a year. You've been building a business here. There's just like this is the most fertile ground for it. All of the elements of it are aligned. And then in terms of Nashville, like in Tennessee, like not only is in 2020, in 2021, Nashville was not the hottest city in America.
Yep.
Miami was. I think Nashville right now, it's in the top 3 or 4, if not like number
I'll take
1.
it. Yeah.
Like Nashville is hot. Like I've seen people who are like, "Oh my god, Miami is like more where it's at." I don't know. Like Nashville's never been more where it's at than where it is right now.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
What was it? Number 1 bachelorette city,
It's a
number
bull
2 or
market.
3 bachelor city, and it needs to become,
Well,
the
it's been
number 1
that for a
Bitcoin
while,
city. But it
right?
needs like that's the next evolution is needs to become the next Bitcoin city.
I mean, I'll tell you, as someone pre Nashville, I thought that Nashville was only good for bachelor parties and bachelorette parties, or what do they say in your hen and stag parties? It's such a better name. Anyway, that's what I thought it was good for. Like I almost kind of dismissed it as a city, but it's a proper city, and it's vibing, and it's the momentum is building. There's just very strong community here. There's
Well, character. Like the city actually has real character.
cost of living is also low. It's very safe city. You can get live music every day of the week whenever you want. Um, we're coming from New York. Our airport is fucking awesome. Marty like gave me shit on RHR this week because that's where I went with it. I was like, we just have a great airport, and he was just like, really, that's you're gonna go with this? Our airport's fucking dope.
So
Easy
the
to
sick
pick you
thing
up
about
from.
talking about New York and then talking about Nashville, post COVID, all like so many of the best so many of the best New York restaurateurs
All it came
went
down
to
here.
Nashville and went to Miami. Like that's where they went. Like
There's a bunch of places
so
that they,
many
they only have 2 locations. They have a Brooklyn location, and they have a Nashville location.
yeah, East Nash
There you go.
specifically. Yeah, which is the
Love East
Brooklyn of
Nashville.
Nashville. But I mean, like Nashville itself, I've been coming here since 2018 because Bitcoin Magazine was here before it
Yeah.
was cool. And it has just gotten so much cooler. And again, like in terms of like Tennessee is more aligned with Bitcoin and Bitcoin only in the Bitcoin ethos than Florida, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the shit corners are deep in Florida.
And like maybe not even to talk too much booty on Florida because Florida is awesome. Like it really is one of the best states in the union in terms of everything that it has to offer, especially for Bitcoin. But compared to Miami, Nashville is it's currently a Bitcoin hub. Thanks to you, thanks to Rod, thanks to Bitcoin Park, thanks to all the work that the Nash Bitcoiners and everything that
It's
is
an
kind of
amazing
been put into
community.
that. It's awesome, but like the people who aren't Bitcoiners are also awesome and unique and
Yeah, the
thriving
people are
on their
great.
own. Like Tennessee and Nashville are thriving on their own because like you said, this is a business forward place. Like you can run a business, and we're throwing an event. We don't have to deal with unions nearly as much in Tennessee than we do in Miami. And that makes a huge difference as a business in many ways. Like we can get into the finances and logistics of that, but that makes a huge, huge, huge difference. And when you want to go and you want to eat out in Tennessee and Nashville, it's going to be a lot more, cost efficient. When you want to go to hotels, it's going to be a lot more cost efficient. And then in terms of the personality, the unique attributes of the city, like I just can't think of a more unique, interesting city right now than, the music city epicenter, the country music epicenter of the world.
Yeah, I will say that when I was in Norway for the Oslo Freedom Forum last year,
I'm going this year. I'm
you're gonna
excited.
love it. It's really good.
Can't wait.
Unfortunately, I cannot make it, but everyone should consider going. It's really, as someone who goes to a lot of Bitcoin events, it's just really great because it's a freedom event that has tangential Bitcoin connections. So like a bunch of freedom focused Bitcoiners go there, but it's not a Bitcoin event. You get to meet all these activists anyway. But anyway, in Norway, you say Tennessee, they have no idea. They have no idea what you're talking about. But you say Nashville and they go country music. They get super excited about it. So like Nashville has some international recognition. I mean, it's definitely not in New York or Miami or LA. In terms of international recognition, but I think it's growing, and I think, the people are super nice, like suspiciously nice.
I mean, I think we could turn this state into a citadel, like great water,
we are. That's
great
exactly
energy,
what we're doing, bro.
Respect for sovereignty and freedom. Like that, the proof is in the pudding, based on the fact that they too, like Texas, like Florida, were open. I mean, we didn't even talk about for folks who want to live here and move here from other
Move
states,
to
no
Nashville.
income tax.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic. And
Low cost of
we didn't
living,
even
no
talk
income
about this,
tax.
but you can get anywhere here in 15 minutes. It's fucking badass.
Yeah, I think
honestly.
less, 12. My meme is 12-minute drive anywhere in the
I
city.
mean, someone who grew up in LA, then lived in SF, spent a lot of time in New York and Miami, like it's so nice to be able to get to even the nicest restaurants in 15 minutes, even get
12
to your
minutes.
friend's house, 12 minutes, get to Bitcoin Park, get to the office.
And parking is easy too.
Parking's easy.
Coming from California and New York.
Ubers are cheap, not as fast, but cheap. And there has to be some flaws. The Ubers are twice as slow. I'm sorry, guys. They don't come in 2 minutes. They come in 4 minutes.
It's more of a Lyft city.
All right.
I think you'll have better time on Lyft than Uber.
I use them both. I are between them, but
not price wise. I don't know about price wise. I'm not like
Matt's price insensitive here.
A little bit price insensitive, but Lyft is usually a quicker experience.
Well, I have the Lyft Pink because I'm a dirty elite credit card user, so I get that premium Lyft. But I mean,
Nashville's good.
I feel like I feel like we live here. We both moved here, so we have we're just like, oh, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. But in terms of like, this is a great place to party. Like, this is a great place to have a Bitcoin conference. People are looking at, hey, we got July 25th through the 27th. It's going to be warm in Tennessee.
It's going to be very hot.
But like the whole event,
it's going to be quite hot.
It's going to be inside all day long. And then outside is t-shirt weather. So I actually think it's going to be awesome.
It cools down at night really well.
And I'll throw out a tease here. I know that there's going to be an incredible halving event in El Salvador. And nothing is locked in on our end. But the fact that the halving is happening in the spring and our conference is happening in the summer means we're going to make something happen in the springtime around the halving. So, last halving, it was a 24-hour live stream. This halving, we're going to do something in person and we'll figure it out. We'll announce it later.
In Nashville?
I don't know. No comment.
We're announcing it, Nashville?
No, I mean, Bitcoin 24 is in Nashville. That's going to be July 24th.
So the halving party is somewhere else?
I'm just saying, like, there's adequate time to throw a halving party.
Yeah.
I know that PR and the CEO and everyone at the company is like, "Fuck you, CK," for saying that on Matt's podcast. But there's adequate time. The timing works out fantastic.
I have a better question.
Okay,
like, how are they? Like, people are buying tickets, and like, I love the Meme Factory crew. Like, fuck you, Greg, but. How are people buying tickets to the Bitcoin halving party this early? How do they know it's going to block production isn't that predictable?
Oh man.
Like,
Well,
they're all gonna imagine, like, hash rate just soars from here, and the halving happens 2 weeks before the time everyone's gonna be in El Salvador, they're gonna it's gonna be 2 weeks after halving, and they're gonna be trying to celebrate the
we will
halving.
do our best if we do a halving thing to do it on the halving. We have experience with the 24-hour halving live stream.
Yeah, but the live stream's easier, like, people aren't buying
No,
tickets and
totally,
shit,
totally, way
traveling in.
easier. But I'm just saying, like, we already know how volatile that ish is, and like the thing is, like, this thing could swing by 3 weeks in either direction
Yeah.
between now or then. Like, this thing can
That's
happen
what I'm
in
saying,
March.
don't plan too
This
far
thing
ahead
can
of
happen
time.
in May. You know, there's a lot of volatility here, and we don't know if hash rate is going to continue to spike or if hash rate is going to nosedive. Like, we don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, the bullish side of me says it's gonna happen earlier than people expect, but either way, don't plan too far ahead of time, guys. Like, just consider it. I'm excited for whatever the
I could
Bitcoin.
confidently say it's going to happen before Bitcoin 24.
Oh, yeah, I
I
mean,
think
it definitely
that's
is.
safe. So we'll do something. We'll do something.
But
for it.
anyway, we will be celebrating at the park. So if you just moved to Nashville, you don't have to plan any timing. You can just come down to the park and we can celebrate here.
Oh, shit.
We're good to go.
Oh, we're gonna have to compete then because we
There you
might have
go.
a party somewhere else.
There's going to be a lot of parties this Bitcoin halving.
I
have
mean,
a
dude,
feeling.
I'm excited for halvings to just turn into the new New Year's.
Yeah, it's
Like,
the real
that's
New Year's.
like, I mean, each epoch. And when I like, this is something from Casey Rodomore, you know, our beloved inventor of ordinals.
I love
But he pointed out, like, dude, one of the most. Here's the thing: is like, for all the ordinals and inscription disrespecters, Casey is the salt of the fucking earth. Casey is one of the most Bitcoin people I've ever met in my life. Casey has thought more.
Casey's a member of the park.
Has
Been
thought
on
more
Dispatch.
about Bitcoin and like Bitcoin's mathematical nature than most people.
Yes.
And one of the observations he made to me, which I thought was absolutely mind blowing, is the halving and the block size, or sorry, the difficulty adjustment do not align. They happen on different increments within Bitcoin until except for every 6 halvings.
So this one?
No, this is the 4th halving.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're like, if you think of
Been a
like
long
Bitcoin
day.
having a full life cycle where it's just like you
So in 8 years
Bitcoin
or 9
starts
years or something?
all the way until Bitcoin has a difficulty adjustment and a halving on the same exact block. That's 6 halvings, so we're halfway there. That's how fucking early we are. We haven't even got like, and there's gonna be many more of those.
So are we planning that party or
Shit, man, I'm not that
buy
good
your
at planning
tickets
that
today? We're
far in
gonna be in El
advance,
Salvador
bro.
this week.
Yeah, but so I guess all I'm trying to say
Yeah,
is
what's
like,
your point?
all I'm trying to say is like, one, you gotta like Bitcoin has some mysterious shit. We are early as fuck. I'm excited for halvings to be ingrained as part of like a human celebration
Yes.
for the world. And we're so early that we haven't even had a halving that happens on the same block as a difficulty adjustment yet. That happens after 6 halvings. So
Every halving
we're only halfway to that milestone.
every halving is our biggest halving
Everyone.
by significant margins. Like the jump up, the 4 years in between or whatever, huge jump up. Second of all, halving is not priced in yet. Like I know Joe Weisenthal just finished his mint the coin shtick. Joe, halving's not priced in. I'm ready to do that next battle. I think we're starting to get into the halving priced in battle. I know you have to wrap. This was great. You want to give some final thoughts to the audience real quick?
I mean, the halving isn't even priced into 37 sats, so no one knows what the fuck is going on. And okay, last thing, to all the Bitcoiners out there who don't think that the best developers haven't been born yet and don't think that Bitcoin's greatest utility has yet to be discovered, you're all fucking bears.
Well, cheers to that. Fuck the Bears. Love you all. Huge thanks to CK for joining us. Appreciate you freaks for supporting the show. I got some great shows lined up. I'll see you soon.
Thank
Stay
you.
humble and stack sats. Appreciate you, CK.
Stay bullish.